Oh, welcome back to the broadcast. We shift gears to a different conversation altogether, and this on matters relationships, very, very important. We're coming from a political season, and sometimes you find that, with this growth of intermarriages and also this growth of people marrying from different areas, where you find that you have married a person from a different tribe, from a different region, you understand that you come together in one home, but with lots of, opinions that could appear different. So sometimes to gel that in and to work out things together would be very, very, a little bit tricky to manage. And therefore, sometimes you need the help of counseling psychologists. Sometimes you need the help of people who've been there long ago or long enough to just let you know how you can make sure that you manage the ties. And so as we speak of, the face of politics, we all know that there are instances where you are in a relationship, you're in marriage, and you realize the kids and as well as the parents differ politically, especially in the question of politically. You find that someone is from this region, another person is from a different region, and their party affiliations, and they speak different. Just how do you create a balance such that this does not affect your relationship, and for you to create a balance that will help you grow strong as opposed to growing weak? And so George Kimani, who's a counseling psychologist, joins me on this very spot for the very same conversation. George, thank you so much for creating time.
Thank you so much, Leader. It's always a joy.
It's a joy to have you too.
And to have a conversation. I'm grateful.
I'd have looped you in with a different guest, but unfortunately she sent a message a little bit late to say that she might not be able to be here. But all the same, I know we can ably touch on 2-3 things that are crucial on the subject of the day. And so as we talk about the happiness and the coexistence of people in a relationship, I think the different opinions or the opinions really are the heart of this. It is their opinions and how they shape them that will determine where they head moving forward. That's why even the Bible itself, the good book, says that two cannot work together unless they agree. But is it always that you have to agree? And when we say agree, does it always mean that you nod to everything in the same direction? Or there are instances on a matter, one can say I will nod to this direction, and somebody else would say this, and you still are able to manage it together as family or as people who are in a relationship. And here we are. Just how important is it for us to first of all appreciate and respect the opinions of the persons that we are in relationships with?
Thank you so much. Let me begin by quoting the good book that you have quoted, which for us who are Christians we call the Bible. And God in the book of Genesis said, it is not good for a man to live alone.
Yes.
That means that God was pointing to a life with relationships. And from that, I want to say that life is relational. For you to live your life well, you need to be in relationships. You cannot sustain your life as a lone ranger. You need me, I need you, we need other persons. Now, for us to come together, going to what you have said, the Bible also tells us that two cannot go together unless they agree. So that means there are some things that you need to agree. And before you form a relationship, there is what we call the core things or the essential things. What is it that is bringing you together? Like today, me and you, we have a relationship in this studio. And what has brought us together, the core thing, is to discuss matters relationship. That's the core thing. But now, once we have come together and we are now implementing that core agenda, there will always be differences in opinions. And it's very, very important, leader, and also our viewers, to appreciate that it is normal for people to have different opinions. It is not wrong, it is okay, and it is healthy. So when you see people developing difference in opinions, it should not be a cause of alarm. It is normal, it is godly. Actually, God himself in the book of Isaiah, he says, come so that we can reason together. So the call by God that we reason shows that we could be having a different opinion from the opinion of God. So if I can have a different opinion from the opinion of God, then who am I not to have a different opinion from you? So it is normal, it is nature, it's biblical.
Okay, yes. Well, interesting. And we have a couple of things that are of importance and are at the heart of this. That yes, they are sometimes that, as a couple you have distinct differences, that that are as clear as day and night. I think I've started by citing the political season. And, you know, in this space, then you don't feel like it is safe. In this space, then you feel like you do not want to speak your opinion so that, you know, you do not hurt the next party or you do not hurt your spouse. How then do you create a balance, you know, right from the word go, you know, to get the two of you understanding? And even sometimes, you know, when you're talking about relationships, it could extend even to young ones or to young ones. There are people who are in a relationships, they're married, they have children who are past 18, and of course, with the most obvious political scenario in the country, they would differ politically. They would differ based on ideology. They would differ based on reasoning. Just how do you get to the table and have these differences accommodated without losing that grasp and that togetherness and that, you know, gum and glue that holds the family together?
I think the first thing is for every one of us to appreciate that God has created us in unique ways. And everyone has, in psychology, there is a theory we call the person-centered theory, forwarded by a guy known as Carl Rogers. And he says everyone has a subjective frame of reference. It is how you see your world. And that is normal, as we have said. However, in reality, when people form different opinions, there are key things that we need to follow so that we accommodate each other. Number one, you need to approach the person with curiosity. Curiosity means seek to understand, why is this person expressing a difference in my opinion? Why are they seeing things in a different way? But unfortunately, instead of most of us approaching that with curiosity, we approach it with judgment, being judgmental. We start making assumptions that this person is forming a different opinion than mine because they don't respect me, they are rude, they are selfish, and so on. So when you take that direction, you cannot accommodate. So you must approach it with curiosity. Number two, you must show what we call empathy. Now, empathy is trying to fit into the shoes of the other person. Try to know, why are they reasoning this way? Why are they arguing this way? Put yourself in their shoes. And then number three, you come to a point of agreement. We call it a common ground. This is where now you agree. And this agreement is required that you be able not to see the other person as the problem, but to see the problem as the problem. But as long as you become personal, as long as you see this is the person who has the problem, then you can never be able to accommodate a difference in opinions. So you need to see the problem as the problem, then discuss it, and at that point, you'll be able to accommodate the other person. Yes.
All right. And in this case, it's about accommodating the other person. But are there instances, and is it healthy that in a relationship, yes, you could be having a divergent opinion, but then again, you have to lower yourself or perhaps raise yourself to the level of the other partner for purposes of calling or quelling any form of, you know, indifference that could be there?
Madam Leader, there are different strategies of dealing with difference in opinions, which by definition we call a conflict. When people differ, we say there is generation of a conflict. And number one, you can decide to avoid the argument. And this strategy of avoiding is more used by people who have a low self-esteem, people who think they are coming from a low position of power. And that one only postpones the problem. And it creates something in psychology we call bottling up. And eventually it will erupt and you see someone having outbursts. Number two, you can decide to accommodate the person. And to accommodate means you take their ideas, you give in to their ideas. You can also decide to collaborate. This is where now you integrate. You integrate their views from yours, or rather together with yours. And another strategy that we can use is called competition. This is where now you decide it is my way and no other way. In quantitative analysis, which I also teach, we call it zero-sum game. It is where you say, everyone for themselves, God for us all. You go your way, you start competing. Now, in many instances, competition does not always resort to general benefits. And that's why even in political world, we have had or we have been treated to the narrative that we must run away from this issue of the winner taking it all. Because when we have the winner taking it all, the other party may be disgruntled. So it is required that the persons be able to accommodate the others, be able to listen and understand the other person. Yeah.
All right, and let's take it a notch higher and look at a family, and a family that has as children therein. And I'm sure when we're talking about this, it's not always about, a man and a woman. It goes on to the people that are around us. And sometimes the differences that we have in opinion that would affect these others that are dependent on us, or otherwise, we are dependent on them. How do we get to create a balance, and especially at that family level where there is an incorporation, or there is an existence of other parties that are involved, in this very relationship that then would be looked at as nuclear, extended, and all that?
Let me I respond to that by first of all saying there are different ways in which we find ourselves in relationships. One is what I would call involuntary relationships. This is where you found yourself. And examples include the family where you were born, your nuclear family, your extended family, the tribe. You found yourself there. You cannot be able to move out. And number two, we have what we call the voluntary methods. Now, this is where you voluntarily take yourself into that relationship. For example, marriage, business partnerships, and so on and so on. Now, in whichever form of a relationship you find yourself, for you to move on, you have to be agreeing, or you have to be having issues that come and you agree. But on the ground, or on the other side, there are instances you don't agree. Now, how do you deal with those ones? The best way is try to communicate to the other person. Try to understand them. And if you realize that they cannot change their position, then look for a way that you will use to solve that conflict, and a way that will not destroy the initial goal going into the future.
Okay.
Because there is a way you can respond to a conflict, and it makes the original terms of the relationship to be changed. You see, like now we have had politics. And people have had difference in opinions.
Yes.
There are people who handled them in a way that after the election, the original terms of the relationships have to be changed now. Because there is something you did, there is something I said, and it has now to be redefined. So I would want to ask people, as they respond to a difference in opinion, be careful of the future. Be very careful of what was the original reason that brought you together. Can we be able to still pursue our original goal, even amidst these differences in opinions? Because these differences in opinions, they are what I would call the by the ways. They are minor things. It's not the reason why we came together. Going back to what I said, I came here together to be with you so that we can have this discussion. But maybe in the sidelines of the show, we might start exchanging our opinions on politics, opinions on economy, and so on. And you might find there we are differing. Now, we don't need to belabor on that. What we need to focus more is what brought us together initially. How do we go into the future in a way that is beneficial to all of us?
There's always some sort of disadvantage, and I don't know whether that would be looked at as a disadvantage. You will tell us that comes with the fact that we look at a certain goal, that we look forward to get to a certain level as a people. Say perhaps when we come together in a relationship, that the ultimate goal is marriage, the ultimate goal is life together for the rest of time. That this would get a majority of people not coming out to be themselves. They say that, well, because we need to keep this family, then I have to stay here in misery and with me, with the troubles of this relationship, in as much as I'm not comfortable with my partner, because we have to keep this marriage and we have to hold it as a family for purposes of our kids, then I just have to persevere all the troubles and all the measures of discomfort that I am experiencing in this relationship. Is it an undoing to sometimes, in a very rigid way, focus on the main goal of the relationship? And does it in a way dilute our opinions and our positions as human beings such that we tend to forget who we are?
That is a very, very important point that you have raised. And while I have emphasized, or while we emphasize on focusing on the original goal, that does not mean you tolerate to the point that it is harmful to yourself. Actually, in psychology, we say ourselves first, the personal care. So if I am in a relationship that now I'm convinced that staying any longer here, my life is in danger, it is better you move out. Actually, there is a renowned personality in this country who is said to have said that it is better I move out of this marriage and my children to be seeing me fewer times but for many years than for them to be seeing me every day for fewer years. So you must first of all take care of yourself. But before we come to that point of moving out of the relationship, you must have explored all the possibilities. And Madam Leader, allow me to say this.
Yes.
When people come together, generally we can call it a group. It could be marriage, it could be business, and so on. And there is a gentleman in psychology known as Corey, and in some of his work that he published in 1995, he gives us what we call the group process. And he says there are 4 stages that any group goes through, which applies even in marriages, applies even in business, even in politics, and so on. And the first stage, he calls it initial stage. Now, this is where people come together with common expectations. We agree that we are going to form a marriage, we are going to form a business, and in this initial stage, there are no differences, there are no major disagreements. Those of us who are married will agree with me that during courtship, there are no major disagreements. And when they arise, people quickly understand and they are easily resolved. Now, from there, after now you form and you agree that we are now in this business, you are in this marriage, and so on, you graduate to the second group, which we call the transition stage. Now, in the transition stage, it is where people start fighting for powers. It is where now the pecking order must be defined. It is where someone feels that this is now what I'm supposed to do, this is what you should not do, this is what I should do. And it is here that we have what we call charged conflicts. And if people do not know how to navigate through this, they live there forever. Even in marriages, you find people have been there in 10 years, but they never agree because they are still at the transition. Now, if they navigate well, they go to the third stage. We call it the working stage. Now, working stage, everyone now amejua raini yake. They know their responsibilities. And now they start working, they start delivering, they become goals-oriented, action-oriented. And upon satisfaction of that, we now go to the 4th stage, which we call the final stage. Final stage is where we have achieved the objective, we have achieved the goal. And now we can either redesign our group to do something else, or we can terminate it. And this happens even in politics. Look at like what we have seen. We have seen coalitions the other day. All these guys had come together to get power. Now, some of them have gotten power, or some of them have not gotten. Watch them in the next phase. What will happen? Chances are they might disintegrate. And if you look at our political history, you can see right now we have the Kenya Kwanza. We had the Azimio. In the 2017, I think we had NASA, we had Jubilee. Yes. Jubilee and NASA are no more because they came to the final stage. Previously, we had many other coalitions. So the same happens even in businesses. Yes, and marriages.
Okay. And we know that soulmates do not necessarily have to think alike. And in most cases, they won't think alike, yeah? Is it proper to always say, let's come to a point of compromise, and that you compromise so that you think alike? And I think that's what we're always told, that for this relationship to survive, then you have to compromise. For this one to hold, then you have to compromise. Just how often should one compromise? And to what level should one compromise to keep the relationship?
Compromise is one of the 5 strategies we use in psychology of solving conflicts or dealing with conflicts. And compromise means you take in the opinions of the other person. You let go your views. But this compromise is not a long-term solution. It's just a short-term solution. It's just to make the waters on the face to appear like they are cool. But underneath, we call them the undercurrents. Yes. We call them the bottling up. And in the long run, or in the due time, you will find that people will erupt. And when people are forced to compromise, you know one of the reasons why people form opinions, it is because of their predetermined beliefs. So when you are forced to compromise, it's like you are ignoring your belief. But this belief is still there. So it creates what we call dissatisfaction. You become disgruntled, and in the opportune time, it will erupt. So I can go for compromise in the short run, but still suggest for real solving of the problem if you want a sustainable relationship.
Okay. What then would be the value of agreeing to disagree in this case?
Agreeing to disagree has very many advantages. Number one, it creates what we call improved decision making. You see, when I table my opinion and you table yours and we differ, we don't agree, then we retreat back to our corners. and we get more time to think about it. Then when we come together, I explain further my opinion, you explain further your opinion, chances are so high that we will come up with a better decision. That's a great advantage. It takes time, but it's good. The other advantage of agreeing to disagree is that it makes people to understand each other well. You are able to know, why is Keman reasoning this way? Why is Rida reasoning this way? And once you understand me, then you'll be in a position now even to handle me well in the future, because you know how I reason, you know my subjective frame of reference, and that becomes very good. And then number 3, it also provides an opportunity for reconciliation. It provides an opportunity for people to come together, to put away their differences and forge forward for the betterment of them in the future. Yes.
And when you speak about this, then when you say forge forward, and when you say, have a common ground where you put away the differences, there are instances where you differ and people have strong opinions on specific issues, and it is rampant and it is recurrent. How best can one handle this? Is it to say that, well, on this one, we realize perhaps we are too different to work things out, and therefore it is okay to go your way and I go mine. Is that as well respecting people's opinions? Should it be done by one party or should it be agreed upon?
Yeah, in the long run, it can be a good path to take. But in the short run, it is important to appreciate that people can form different opinions. And as I said, why do we form our opinions? One of the reasons is the way we were brought up. Actually, if you look at a theory we call psychoanalytic theory, it talks about the structure of personality and the view of human nature. And it says from the ages of 0 to 6 years, we have 3 stages. One is called oral, the other one is called ano and the pharik. They really determine how someone reasons. And when you find that you have a difference in opinion, it's also good to take back a journey of how you are brought up. Identify what did you go through? What kind of beliefs were input in you, in your subconscious and unconscious mind, so that you see how you can rectify them and be able to accommodate opinions. But even after you have done that and you realize the other person cannot change, because if people are very passionate about something, they may not really change. Then if you realize they cannot work, then you say, too bad, everyone to go their way.
We have about 3 minutes to close this conversation, but I'd want to ask this on behalf of the many people who are watching us, and especially those ones who are in a relationship, whether it's marriage, whether it's courtship, whether you are just dating. What are some of the things to look out for, especially when you want to be careful not to have different opinions? What are some of these things that would cause distinct, different opinions, say in a relationship? About 3, 4.
One of the things that you must carefully check is the upbringing of the person. Check how was this person brought up. The family setup. I don't want to dwell into that because of the interest of time, but it's very, very important to look at the family background of this person. Did they have a mother? Did they have a father? Did they have siblings? What kind of environment was prevailing in their early lives? That's something very important. Number 2, you need to look at the value system, the belief system. What does this person believe? What do they hold dear? You need to check on that. Number 3, you need to look at the previous experiences of this person, the history. Other than the early childhood, what has been the life of this person? Is he a person who has been forming relationship from one relationship to another? Does he have a history of breakups? Does he have a history of conflicts? You need to check on that. Number 4, you also need to look at issues to do with culture. Because culture also influences how we think, how we form opinions. You also need to look at even issues to do with religious background, religious convictions. You also need to look at even education levels, although those are minor. Education level, the financial status, the age of the person, they are also factors. That you need to really be careful on. But of most important is the value system and the background of the person.
All right. Counseling psychologist George Kimani, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. Quite an intense conversation, and I can see I am receiving lots of feedback from the people who are saying that's a very, very important conversation. Linda, we see how keen you are to it, and I think one Lubai says that yes, relationships are crumbling down because it's hard to accommodate the opinions of your partners, it's important that you get to a place where you can have such conversations so that you can get your relationship to that space of survival. Others are saying that it is okay to have different opinions. It's just that you need to come down and sit down and have a common ground as to always how you get to accommodate the difference in these opinions. Asante sana for speaking to us. It's exactly 57 past the top of the hour, 57 minutes and 3 minutes to the top of the hour. We have to shift gears to a different conversation after this short break. Look forward to having some other time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I appreciate.
Okay. Your contacts, just in case they'd love to hear from you, or maybe they'd love to get guidance.
Yes, they can get me in town at the Bazaar Plaza in a school known as Destiny Technical Training Institute, and my contacts are 0720 322 961.